I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching another episode of Explained with me. In a tragedy that has shocked not only Canada but the world, Tumbler Ridge, a small remote town in British Columbia, became the site of one of the deadliest school shootings in Canadian history. But behind the headlines lies a story of pain, mental health struggles, and an overwhelming loss that has left a community reeling. Today on Explained, let's look into the details surrounding the devastating shooting that has left at least 9 people dead, including the suspect, who was Jesse Van Rootselaar, the 18-year-old trans woman responsible for the massacre. What drove her to commit such an unthinkable act, and what are the wider implications for mental health and gun control in Canada? On February 10, 2026, a dark day unfolded. The shooting spree began at the home of Jesse Van Rootselaar. Authorities say she first killed her 39-year-old mother and 11-year-old stepbrother. It was a horrific and tragic act that would set the stage for violence that followed. After taking the lives of her family members, the 18-year-old, armed with a long gun and a modified handgun, made her way to Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, where she had once been a student. But Jess had not attended the school for over 4 years. Still, she found her way inside and chaos erupted. There she opened fire. 6 victims, including a teacher, and 5 students were killed. The students ranged in age from 12 to 13 years of age. The community's worst fears were realized when authorities arrived, only to be met with shots fired in their direction. Officers quickly secured the area and the shooter was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. But the tragedy did not end there. The death toll, initially reported as 9, was later revised to 10, including the shooter herself. Jesse Van Rootselaar was not a typical teenager born biologically male. She had been transitioning to female for the past 6 years, identifying publicly as a woman. She had shared her journey on social media, but there was far more to her story. Jessie was a young woman struggling with severe mental health issues. Police reports revealed that officers had visited her home multiple times in response to mental health concerns. On more than one occasion, she was apprehended under the Provincial Mental Health Act and taken for psychiatric assessments. Family members and neighbors had raised alarms about her well-being, and yet, despite these warning signs, Jessie had access to firearms. While she once held a valid gun license, it had expired in 2024. Authorities had previously confiscated weapons from her home, only for them to be returned to a lawful owner after an appeal. This raises an important question. How was Jessie able to access the weapons used in the attack, and why were her mental health struggles not more thoroughly addressed? The link between mental health and violence is complex and contentious. Jesse Van Rootselaar's case highlights a glaring issue in Canada, the challenge of addressing mental health while also managing gun access. Though Canada has some of the strictest gun control laws in the world, the Tumbler Ridge tragedy exposes the cracks in the system when it comes to monitoring firearms and mental health care. In a country where school shootings are a rarity compared to its southern neighbor, the United States, this attack has sent shockwaves through the community. It's the second deadliest school shooting in Canadian history, behind the 1989 Montreal massacre, and like the victims of that tragedy, the families in Tumbler Ridge now face an unfathomable loss. Prime Minister Mark Carney has vowed to stand with the victims and their families, offering his condolences to the grieving community. Flags across the country were lowered to half-staff in their honor. In the wake of the shootings, the small town of Tumbler Ridge has been plunged into deep mourning. Local authorities have expressed their shock, and the community, once close-knit, is now struggling to cope with the trauma. Following the massacre, the government's gun control measures are once again under scrutiny. In 2022, Canada expanded its ban on assault-style weapons, but this incident has raised the need for more stringent monitoring of gun ownership, especially when mental health issues are at play. While school shootings are rare in Canada, mass shootings are not unheard of. The 2020 Nova Scotia shooting, which claimed 22 lives, led to a sweeping changes in Canada's firearms legislation. But the Tumbler Ridge massacre raises new questions. How can Canada better address the issue of firearms in the hands of people with known mental health struggles? As of now, the motive behind Jesse Van Rootselaar's attack remains unclear. There was no manifesto, no specific target, the victims were random, and while police continue their investigation, they are yet to find a clear explanation for why Jesse did what she did. Was this a result of her struggles with mental health? Was it the culmination of years of unresolved anger and pain? Or was it something more, something still hidden from view? What happened in Tumbler Ridge will leave a scar on Canada's heart for years to come. It's a tragedy that will take time to process and even longer to understand. In the meantime, the survivors, the families, and the community will try to heal, but they will never forget the lives lost, the lives shattered, and the senselessness of it all. We may never know the full reason behind Jesse Van Rootselaar's actions, but what we can do is learn from this tragedy. We must confront the realities of mental health and its relationship to violence, and work to prevent future horrors like this one. That's all for this episode of Explained. Stay tuned as we bring you more in-depth insights and stories that matter.